We said for a long time, multiple games in a row now, Kirby Smart and Georgia still have that Thanos quality to them a little bit. Like, it may look a certain way for a few quarters, may look a certain way for the duration of the season. Like, Georgia lost 2 ball games here. A couple of them pretty convincingly, to be honest. Kirby still has the ability to, I believe, snap and just turn it on, and this team goes crazy, and, like, that's just kind of the end of the day. That's how Georgia gets it done. But it's not unreasonable to say that Georgia looks down right now. So what does that mean, and how does that correlate to their game against Notre Dame? We'll talk about it right now. First things first, subscribe to the On3 YouTube channel. Georgia Bulldog fans, y'all been dialed in with us for a minute here. We appreciate you for that. Show brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Mentioned it earlier in the live show. We're going to have some plays for you. Have a play for you actually in this segment as it relates to Gunner Stockton, so stay tuned for that. But code HARDCOUNT, $5 in lineups gets you $50 in promo funds. So back to what I was saying here about Georgia looking down, quote unquote. Like, if you bet against Georgia, I don't think anybody blames you at this point in time. You took Georgia with, +2, or Notre Dame +2.5 or +1.5, whatever you got it at. Like, I don't think anybody's really blaming you all that much because Georgia has looked as gettable as they've ever been. The 2 regular season losses I mentioned, they were not something to get excited about. Starting quarterback, out. Line of scrimmage, hasn't been as consistent as usual. Pass catchers, not nearly as elite as we thought in the preseason. I believe they're like darn near the top of the country when it comes to drops. Nobody touching the football for Georgia, from what I can gather. It's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. Those losses I go back to, like the Ole Miss loss wasn't close. The Alabama loss probably shouldn't have been close if not for Georgia turning on the absolute nitrous to throttle forward and have a chance to win at the end there. But, like, first half was a sight to behold. All that said, and even if you bet against Georgia, I still don't think you feel that awesome about it. I still don't think you're saying, yep, this is a lock of all locks. More power to you for making the pick. But Georgia, I think, for all the reasons I just mentioned, is still enormously, enormously dangerous. I can't help but feel like Georgia, when we talk about them in the context of this year, we've said it many times, when they have urgency, when they have to go into survival mode, I think they're better than anybody else in America. And right now, everything I just mentioned, they're in survival mode. You got Gunner Stockton at quarterback. You're about to go get after in a college football playoff game with one of the tougher round 2 draws, if we're going to be honest, if you're not named Oregon or Ohio State. Like, this is not a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination for Georgia. But even with that being said, we've seen them with their back against the wall multiple times be able to have better survival traits than anyone else in this whole bracket. You lose to Bama, what happens? Everyone's picking you against, or picking Texas against you, and you're in Austin, and you're, I think it was like almost a field goal dog in that game. Roll into Austin, take that thing over. Your quarterback throws 3 picks. You win that thing by 2 scores. Okay, response mechanism, survival traits, they're there. You lose to Ole Miss. I said it before. You got embarrassed against Ole Miss. Like, everyone, I think, had the right to question Georgia after that game. Totally fair. A week later, turn around, go back home, throttle Tennessee, a team that made the college football playoff. Say what you want about how they finished the year. Tennessee was not an easy out by any stretch of the imagination. Just ask Alabama. Quarterback goes down in the SEC title game. Bring in Gunner Stockton. No panic, no stress, no strain. You're down in that football game. By a small margin, but you're down, nevertheless. Overtime, find a way, come together, rally, win the football game. Like, there's a certain part of the Georgia football team that just doesn't make sense, and that's okay, because Kate and I were talking about this before the show. The neck-up part of Georgia, you feel incredible about. The DNA traits of what Kirby Smart has installed into this team, you feel incredible about. Now, I do think within this game, the Gunner Stockton prize pick square for rush yards is super, super intriguing here. His number is set at 12.5 rush yards. I will take the more there. Why? What I just said, urgency, grit, who Georgia's going to be in this game. They're going to double down on who they are. And I think Gunner Stockton running the football is going to be a part of that. I think they'll be kind of versatile in the run game. I think Mike Bobo will have to dial up a 2.0 version of Georgia's offense to take advantage of that with Gunner Stockton. But, like, I feel really good about that number. So, again, code HARDCOUNT, $5 in lineups, $50 in promo funds over at prizepicks.com. Lock that in. Feel amazing about it. But the survival traits of who Georgia is, for everything we've just said, back against the wall, I don't think there's anyone better. It's also worth noting now, the pedigree of Kirby Smart, he knows what he's looking at. Like, you give him 24 days to prep, have to believe they're going to come out with a game plan they feel phenomenal about. They'll come out swinging, and they will rally behind Gunnar Stockton. Kirby Smart said it yesterday during Media Day for the Sugar Bowl. Gunnar Stockton makes everyone around him play better. Not because he's got an NFL-level arm like Carson Beck does, not because he's the biggest guy in the world, because of his intensity, because of how he commands the huddle, because of all those unquantifiables. And that falls right in line with who Georgia is right now. The unquantifiable part of them is what makes them scary. And you can't watch it on tape and see it. You can't look at it in the box score and say that's who Georgia is unquantifiably. Like, you can't quantify it. That's what we're saying right here. But with that being the case, that's why you don't know what you're getting with this Georgia football team when it comes to how they're going to attack you, how they're going to, I think, come out of the gate here. They're going to prep for you. Like, all those things about Georgia are terrifying. They're still scary. The urgency makes them scary to me. And, again, we have picked them to beat Notre Dame in their second-round college football playoff game in the Sugar Bowl. So, Georgia, man, I mean, it's also worth noting the bracket that they got, dude, the side of the bracket, rather, they avoided Ohio State, they avoided Oregon, they avoided Texas. Not that Georgia's all that worried about Texas after beating them twice, but if there was a draw to have if you're Georgia, it wasn't the best in the world because you got to play Notre Dame in your first playoff game, but even so, I don't think it was the worst in the world either when you look at what's ahead of them.